My name is Dean, and welcome to talk about theology, church, and culture. Now let's get into it. So it's almost Christmas time, right? Like, we got Christmas coming pretty quick, and a lot of us are wondering, like, what do we do? What do we do about church? Now, probably you already have plans, but I've seen a lot of people who have gone from, like, the planning to, like, getting really uptight about what other Christians are doing about Christmas. Because Christmas this year falls on a Sunday, which means the question comes, are you going to church or are you staying home? Now, I wanted to just take a couple minutes. Today's probably going to be a pretty short stream. Like, I'm going to try. You know, it's always like an hour and a half, so who knows whether it'll actually work. But my thought is to have a little bit quicker of a stream. I got a couple things lined up. We're gonna look at the penalty box. We're gonna get some comments. Woo! We got some in the penalty box. We're gonna look at that. We're gonna visit Fundyville later on. We didn't do those last week, and then I've got my favorite thing that I've read. Spoilers, it's going to be very emotional. But year long, I'm going to show you today. And something that I read that I thought was pretty funny too. So we'll look at that as well. So we got a lot of different things going on, but today I want to start off with this question of, should Christians go to church? And of course, the answer to that is yes. Like, Christians should go to church. Now, I want to be clear, like, a lot of people are in a stage of life right now because of how the last couple years have gone, different polarization that's happened. Some people, I would say, are displaced. It's not like they've given up on the church, but they have been displaced from their church. Different things have happened, different controversies, and they find themselves churchless. Well, depending on where you live, there's probably a good place that you could go. Hey, maybe, think about some of these church plants that are looking for some people, especially experienced, volunteers to come and be a part of it. There's all that kind of stuff. But I want us to really focus on this idea of how do we think of people who have a differing opinion. And as I do that, I know that there are probably going to be people who don't like my opinion on this because they don't like my opinion on a lot of things. So if you do, hit the like button. It lets everyone know that I'm streaming right now and they could come and be a part of this conversation. But my opinion is that if you are not going to church as a Christian on Sunday, on Christmas Day, I'm just talking about that specific day. I'm not talking about abandoning the church. I'm not talking about giving up on, your whatever denomination of church. I'm not talking about any of that stuff. I'm just talking about church on Christmas Day. I think it's okay. I think it's all right. If you are of the mind that, Christmas is a family holiday and you're going to stay at home and you're going to worship from home. I have a lot actually on my channel from back in the pandemic days talking about online church and what that could look like and whether that is a viable concept of church. There are differences of opinions on that. But I do think that, once in a blue moon, that it would be all right, it would be appropriate for Christians to not attend church. Now, it doesn't mean that you take a month off and you're just like, well, it's Christmas holiday season, and so I'm just not going. Or like I have, just abandoned it. We're not talking about that. We're talking about that one specific Sunday. And to all those people, because I've seen so many Christians, I was thinking like maybe I should show some of the tweets, but it's all the typical people. Like it's all the same people that I show all the time being very controversial in how they talk about this idea of Christians not attending church on that Sunday. And they're saying things like you're, worshiping family. I've seen that quite a bit. But is that accurate? Like, are you, bowing down to your kids? Now, it might not look like that. We know that there are idols in our lives and things that we worship that are not God in different moments. So it's really about like your passion about something. But are you placing your family above God, or are you worshiping God a slightly different way just on that Sunday? I've seen that from different pastors that you're worshiping family rather than God. I don't think that's accurate. Also, a lot of these people who have this opinion are saying that, like you can never not attend. I've seen quite a bit of that. Like even like GIFs, and I say GIFs, I know. I'm probably wrong. It's supposed to be GIFs, but it just sounds weird to me. So that's just how I say it. Maybe that's my most controversial thing. Maybe that's what's going to get you to leave one of those comments that's going to end up in the penalty box. But I've seen like GIFs or GIFs about how like church attendance is not optional. Like different things from like Star Trek and other things being like you must comply kind of a deal. I just want us to like temper that, because while obviously church is important and everyone should have a home church, and we do have verses like the one that everyone memorized, the one that they didn't know before the pandemic, of that we should not forsake the assembling of ourselves together. We do have verses like that, but what does that actually look like? That means to like give up on church. All right, we're not talking about you not being able to be there on a specific Sunday, or like if that were the case, like you'd never be able to go on vacation. Because if you're a member to a church, then you should be at that church, right? Like we're not like those people who would be like, all right, well, it's a sin. I've seen that of people being like, Christians have to attend church on this Christmas Sunday. And they're saying all kinds of things like it's a sin. I've seen stuff about people being called apostates, like any church that closes on a Sunday, on a Christmas Sunday, is an apostate church. Like, one, that doesn't make sense. It's an oxymoron. But also, like, no. There are plenty of churches that have closed for different things. Now, it shouldn't be the norm. Let me be clear about that too. It shouldn't be the norm that churches are just, every holiday they're just being like, I don't know, or, because of low attendance. That's something that I've seen quite a bit, is people accusing some of like these bigger churches, like J.D. Greer's church, who they've been doing this for a while as like this form of Sabbath. Now, I don't think that that's the appropriate phrasing for Sabbath. But like, that's what they've been doing. And a lot of people have been like, well, they just don't want to have that low attendance. As if like someone's coming in and, it's like when I worked at Taco Bell in college and, working like the drive-through, and there was like, maybe you've worked drive-through at different places. You get this, that you have to get a certain timing for that drive-through, and if you have someone who's there for like 3 minutes, that looks really bad. And you have people like from corporate coming in, and they're judging you based on this like timing performance. Who's doing that with J.D. Greer's church? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I don't think that they're doing it based solely off of that. So we need to get away from those kinds of accusations of just trying to look better on numbers. Like, there's no one coming in with a chart being like, oh, Summit Church, they're not able, like, that's so, no, that's not what they're doing. Now, they're trying to give their people a break because, they have a lot of volunteers doing a lot of different things at some of these bigger churches, not just J.D. Greer's church, but many other churches like it. Okay, but I don't think we should call it like a Sabbath rest. That's not what Sabbath means. But like, I think that it is appropriate for like a Sunday, a rare Sunday like this of a Christmas holiday that most families are still going to be worshiping in some way. Like, they're not going to just be like, I ain't doing nothing. They're sitting down with their families. They're reading through Luke 2. They're praying as a family. That's what my family does every Christmas day. That is family worship. Now, I've also seen, well, if you don't do family worship on a regular basis and you're just doing it on this Christmas Sunday, that doesn't count. I don't know why. Also, there's nothing in Scripture that talks about having to do family worship on a regular basis, by the way. Neither. All right, here's something for some of you guys that you might clip this out. But there's nothing in Scripture that says that you have to go to church every single Sunday. Did you know that? Like, let me say that one more time for the people in the back. Like, there's nothing in Scripture that says you have to go to church every single Sunday in order to be a Christian. Now, you should be part of a local church and you should be meeting with them. But actually, if we're going to go by specific days, what we see in Scripture is every day. That they were breaking bread in their homes every day. So if we're going to be very, rigid about how we interpret this idea of gathering together as a local assembly, as a local church, well, then you better be meeting day by day and dedicating yourself to the apostles' teaching and to the breaking of the bread. Like, that's the example that we see in the book of Acts. So this idea of church on a Sunday is actually something that comes a little bit later. Now, I don't have any problems with the idea of worshiping God on Sunday. It is, the day that Jesus rose from the dead. And I think that we do have historical background to be able to say that this is what the early church developed. But you actually don't see anything in Scripture about meeting on a Sunday. And that churches are always supposed to meet as that local assembly to gather together for worship in a corporate way on a Sunday. Like I said, the evidence is actually, if you're going to take that kind of an approach, it would have to be day by day, because that's what they were doing in the book of Acts. So now, That's not to say that we should throw it Sunday or we should change it to a different day. I don't think that we have any reasoning to do that. My only thing in bringing that up is to say these people that want to say, all right, well, you have to do it this particular way. I mean, we're really going off of things that we've gathered from church history and saying that this rule applies to everybody. So we need to be a little bit careful about how we do that, because actually that's what the Catholics do to us. And they say, well, because of this church history, we're going to take that as, equal with Scripture. And that they get into trouble with that. And I want us to avoid that kind of legalism of saying like this is what it has to be. Now, you should be meeting with your church. And like I said, it shouldn't be that churches are not meeting on a consistent basis. Like they just don't ever meet. Like they go fully online. That's wrong, because we do see evidence within Scripture of churches being together, and church isn't just about what happens on that Sunday morning. So there's lots of different things to temper that. But I think we need to be very careful when we're talking about like saying that someone is in sin, or saying that like the extreme version of this is that, these churches that close on that Sunday, that they're apostate. That we just cannot say, especially like if we're just talking about one particular Sunday in which most Christians are going to still be worshiping as a family. Like it's not like you just go on vacation, and you're just chilling in the hotel and you don't do anything for church and you just kind of forget about worshiping God. Like that's not what's happening for most families on Christmas Day. Most of the families who are going to be staying home. So now, whether you're going to go to church, like that's a different question. Like, should you go to church? I think if your church is having a service, then you should probably do that. Like if your local elders have decided that we're not going to, and there's different2 TGC got into some hot water because they had 2 different opinions, and then, well, I guess they had kind of 3, 2 on one side, 1 on the other. But Kevin DeYoung wrote an article basically calling out for pastors not to cancel services on that Christmas Sunday. And then another article about how Christians should go to church, so they should have those services, their normal services on that Christmas Sunday. And then there was another one. This is what they got into. It's not hot water when it's the other side, but on this side, they definitely got into some hot water when I think it was a church planter talking about how they weren't going to be having services because most people were traveling and they're away. And a lot of people were not okay with that. So, there's a lot to be said there. There's a lot of feelings, but let's just make sure that when we're talking about like apostate, we're talking about like doctrine, and that they don't believe in Jesus anymore. Like they don't have an orthodox view of Jesus. That's not what's at stake with this Christmas Sunday thing. And I think this just speaks once again, to that culture of polarization, that if you don't agree with me, well, you're the worst. Like we see that all the time. I experience a lot of that here on YouTube. If I don't agree with you, or I say something that's different than what you would imagine, then I must be a false teacher, or I must not believe in Jesus. I actually get that quite a bit, but I just have a different point of view. And Christians can have a different point of view on this topic. And just because someone has a different point of view, that doesn't have to change your view. To say like, all right, this person says they're not going, like this pastor, let's go to the pastoral realm here. That sounds weird. I don't really want to go to the pastoral realm. That's weird. But let's say that we'll go there, and a pastor decides, they're not going to have a service. And another pastor decides that they are going to have a service. We don't have to be so extreme to where we're saying that the other side is wrong. Like, there are things that are clear in Scripture about the assembling of the saints. But there's also some things, and once again, just even the day, I'm just saying it, like you look into it, like it's not as concrete as a lot of people think, but like you got to be careful about how you word things when there's some gray things in Scripture about what that actually looks like. Now, we have quite a bit about, what's to be done in a worship service and what's not to be done in a worship service. But like the particular day and what that looks like, and when it comes to cultural holidays, what that looks like. Now, I'm not saying, cancel church on the 4th of July. Like, that's not what I'm saying. Like, I'm not saying any other, like, I'm not even saying that it's necessarily the wisest thing to do. I'm just saying, like, let's not call brothers and sisters in Christ apostates or say that they're in sin because their church has decided this particular thing. So, doesn't make them a heathen, all right? Did you guys like the Home Alone reference? In the title thing. But yeah, that's my view. That's my view on it. Now, whether you're going to church, that's like, again, if you're deciding that you're going to go to church, then go to church. Worship God. If you're going to be at home with your family, then worship God. Be at home with your family, worship God, and don't give up on church. Don't let it be like the first and like I'm never going to attend a church ever again, like that kind of a thing, or I'm going to just always be online. That's not what I'm arguing for. All right, now once again, there are life situations that some people have found themselves in. Maybe you live in a town where you don't have a good church. These places exist. I live in Canada, where it's really up to church planters to really reach into some of these towns and be able to plant good, healthy churches because there's just not any. All right, now, depending on where you live, if you live in the United States, I can guarantee you that there's at least a good church within driving distance somewhere. Might not be in your town, but it's probably close. Now, other places around the world, different life situations, that might not always be the case. So just want to give those caveats because I know that some of you are in those life circumstances and you're just like, don't judge me, Dean. I'm not. So let's say hi to a few people in the chat, and then we got some more stuff. I'm going to show you my favorite thing that I've read all year long, and it's probably not what you think it would be. But let's see. Yeah. Caleb was here right off the bat, saying, missing the intro with Little Marty, usually dig the tunes. I'm bringing it back. For a while, I followed some other advice of how to start live streams. And then I realized that there's some really big live streamers that have their timers, and the timers are helpful to be able to let people come into the chat and give those notifications and give a couple minutes to have people coming into the chat. As long as it's not a 15-minute timer, I think that's probably the way I'm going to go moving forward. So I like the timers too. So Sarah, hi Dean, whole family tuning in this afternoon. Turns out we have COVID. Sarah, that sucks. Seems like we're always sick, so I appreciate churches that live stream, right? I will say, for some of you guys who are all mad about how things went during the pandemic, churches finally figured out how to use the internet, or at least a lot of churches. Some churches, you still haven't figured that out, but a lot of churches figured out how to use the internet and how to do live streaming. A lot of them don't do it well yet, but they're, putting their streams out there. So there are a lot of people that are benefiting from that. Also, Michael is here and says hello all, and is also saying, sorry to hear that. I'm glad live in a time where we can attend virtually. Yeah, a lot of people are in that stage of life or going through something. Maybe you're on vacation. Live streaming is very helpful. From what's on Christian Twitter, too many have an attitude of entitlement of having people attend their church. Also, Christmas and Easter weekends are insanely hectic at church, right? And I will say, a lot of people are actually not going to do church even though they're at church. What do I mean by that? I mean, a lot of churches are going to have kids do their little concerts, and that's all they're doing. This is prevalent in North America, where we have kids just doing a play on Christmas morning. That's not church. If we're going to be really particular about things, That ain't church just having a play. Now, if your church does that and you're thinking like, wait, what do you mean? I would advise you to read this. Read this. Baptist Confession of Faith, 1689, Second London Baptist Confession, will be helpful in describing what it looks like to do church. That's a confession that I hold to. So I'm just saying, like, some of these people that just do like a play, we like a lot of those people, like mostly Baptists is who I'm thinking of. They get very mad at the charismatics for putting on a play in their worship. So just saying, even though it's cute, doesn't make it church. Let's see. Some of these comments are just a little long, so I don't have time to like really like go through all of them. Let's see. Brandy says people are just prideful, also a sin. I don't know. Okay. And well, hey, happy holidays. Checking in from Houston. Hey, how's it going? Let's see. Jack, I'm seeing a lot of capital R reform folks that are usually saying if you don't go to church on Christmas Sunday, you need to find a new church because that isn't a church. That's a bit much. Appreciate you hopping in, Jack. And yeah, I am seeing quite a bit of that as well. Of like, it just shows that there's a bigger problem in your church. And so you should, attend a different church. Like, this is a very rare thing, like it doesn't happen every year of where Christmas falls on that Sunday. Let's be a little bit graceful about one day. All right. Like, it's almost as if the Bible actually says something about that. If someone observes one day better than another. What should we do about that with each other? Condemn each other. That's what we should do. We should condemn each other hard. Well, all right. I am vibing your coffee mug today. It's a mood. I'm just saying, like, some days it really fits. All right. Let's go over to my favorite thing. And I'm just going to, like I said, fair warning. Like, this one is emotional. And, I'm still kind of in an emotional spot. I'll just be real honest with you. My mom passed away a year ago, just last week, which I know that kind of sounds like whatever. Like, you hear people talk about, like, it's almost like toddlers, and they're 19 months. And it's like, okay, you could say almost 2 years, like it kind of feels like that a little bit to me, but of being like 1 year, a week ago. But I'm just kind of in an emotional spot. So, bear with me, cause I might have to stop. Oh, David's here. Hey family. Hope everyone is doing well. Most people are, just not Sarah and her family. Sorry. So sorry, Sarah, but hope you guys are getting better. Let's go over here, and I'm going to show you, like a lot of people would just assume, that my, favorite read, as I fix the camera angle, my favorite read would be, why is that? Oh, everything is always something is just like a little off. But most people would think like my favorite read would be like, like one of these. if you're like familiar with my channel, you probably know, like, no, that's probably not what Dean's favorite read is going to be this year. Is like some big theology book. Honestly, I haven't really had the time for it this year. But my favorite read is actually this article from The Ringer. Now, if you know sports, you know what The Ringer is. And they talk about, all sports, but for me, I really am devoted to basketball. I love the NBA. I love the Raptors. I want the Sonics to come back so I can root for the Sonics again. But I love the NBA, and I listen to a lot of NBA podcasts. And one of my favorites is The Ringer's NBA podcast, where Jonathan Tjarks has been doing his thing for years. And I love listening to the guy. And this was written in March. You know, yeah, I'm already. This is a hard one, but it's so good. I probably don't have the link actually in the description, but if you come back later, or you could just Google "Does my son know you?" because this article went all over the place for good reason. But yeah, I loved listening to the guy. He was a great NBA analyst, especially when it came to like draft stuff and young player development and all that kind of stuff that I find super interesting. Well, he had cancer, and he, battled it, and he battled it, but they found out pretty late, and so he didn't have a lot of, you know, there just wasn't a very good chance of him being able to come on out to the other side of it, and he died a couple months ago from this cancer. But before he did, he wrote this article, "Does my son know you?" And I think every Christian should read this article. I really believe that. Like there are books, you know, your top 10 books of 2022. There are, like, you got all those kinds of lists, but I think if you're going to have a list about reading, I think really this should be at the top, because this is what it looks like to live a Christian life and to be like a real example of what a Christian does, what a Christian believes to the world. Now, Jonathan Tjarks, he probably would say that he wasn't like the most like outright with his faith, especially in it, like his writing. He's talking about NBA stuff. He's talking about X's and O's of like, how tall a player is and like all that kind of stuff. So like, there's not a lot that you can be like, I'm going to fit the gospel into this, So like, there's not a lot in his writing about that, but you can tell, just in the way that he talked, that he had faith. So he starts this with, waiting for a PET scan is pretty boring. The nurse brings you down a long hallway with a bunch of rooms on each side. Each is just big enough to fit a chair and a sink. They all look the same except for the picture on the wall. I've seen a pond, a lake, and some mountains. You walk into a room, sit down, and get injected with dye. Then you have to wait an hour for it to go through your bloodstream. There's absolutely nothing to do. The doctors want as little brain activity as possible in order to get a better scan. You put your phone in a locker and there's no TV. You can't even bring anything to read. If you are, you get some sleep. If you are lucky, you get some sleep. Otherwise, you are left alone with your thoughts. I got scanned for the first time last April. That's when I found out I had cancer. I had been in and out of the hospital for 2 months. The doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong because what I had, Ewing like sarcoma with all this stuff, is so rare. Sarcomas are small tumors found in the bones and connective tissues of the body. They represent about 1% of new cancer cases in the United States each year among adults, and he goes on to give some of the stats. And he goes on about what his experience with cancer was like, and things that he was wrestling with. But then he starts talking about his son, and that's really like the focus of this article. So he said, like I said before, it leaves you with a lot of time to think. So as he's sitting there waiting for this stuff to go through his bloodstream, I usually end up thinking about my son. His name is Jackson. He was born in late March 2020, the week after Rudy Gobert tested positive for COVID-19. So it's just so weird because that's like, I have a son who was born right about that time. He's now almost 2, which is a really fun age. We communicate with him. He learns a new word almost every day. He's obsessed with cars. He stomps around the house with a toy car in each hand and rolls them on any surface he can find. He cries when we drive them when we drive off a busy street and he can no longer see cars driving past. Sometimes we will be in his high chair and just start saying, ooh, the K's. It makes sense when you think about it. And he talks about how amazing, cars are. Um, and then he says, being a dad has been the greatest joy of my life. I was never someone who debated about whether or not to have a family. It's something that I wanted ever since I was a kid. I wanted what I didn't have. My dad was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease when I was 6. He talks about how he passed away, or at least, medically he kind of got really just he wasn't really there. He says he was no longer there. I was 12. That's the age when your parents go from authority figures to actual people. That never happened for me and my dad. We never got to know each other. What did he like doing? What were his experiences growing up? What were his goals in life? And there's the simpler stuff too. Now, do you tie a tie or grill a burger or fix a car? I had to figure out all of that on my own. But it looks like my son might have to do the same. Ah, man. It's just so good because he's talking about how much he loves his son. And then he starts really talking about, some of the ideas of fatherhood. And then he starts talking about church. I was nervous the first time I went to a life group. I joined a church the week before, and one of the pastors, a guy a few years older than me, invited me. It was a smaller group of people who met at his house every week. I remember walking up to the door and not knowing what to expect on the other side. There was a dozen people in the living room talking to each other. I didn't know any of them besides the pastor, and I barely knew him. I didn't know what to do, so I did what most people would do. I headed over to the table with snacks. Eventually, the chatter died down, and everyone sat in a circle in the living room. They all introduced themselves with an icebreaker, something about their favorite TV show or their favorite snack. I was thinking either I'm supposed to say I'm an alcoholic or this is a cult. Man, been there. But nothing that exciting happened. They sang a few songs and then talked about the Bible for a while. At the end of the meeting, everyone paired off to pray for each other, and the pastor asked me what I thought of the group. And then he asked if I would come back. I said I guess, but I wasn't sure. That was 7 years ago. Some of those strangers from the house that first night are now some of my closest friends. It didn't happen overnight. It took me a long time to feel comfortable. I usually came after the life group had already started and left as soon as it was over. But I was seeing the same people every week, and I was telling them about my problems, and they were telling me about theirs. Do that for a long enough time, for long enough, and you become friends. You get to know enough people that way, and life group goes from being an obligation to something that you actually look forward to. Making the commitment to come every week is still hard. There are always other things to do. Sometimes you are tired, or you had a long day, or you just don't feel like it. It gets even harder once you get married and have kids. Nor are the people always easy to deal with. You may not have a lot in common. You may have to search for things to talk about. You have to be vulnerable with people, and they don't always respond how you would expect, and you certainly won't always agree with them on how they see the world. Isn't that true? The past 2 years hasn't been easy. Our life group met over Zoom for a while. People ask me whether I have to be more careful because of my condition in the pandemic, but it's really the opposite. I don't have the luxury of waiting for life to get back to normal. This might be the only time that I have. I can't imagine not being in a life group at this point. Human beings aren't supposed to go through life as faces in a crowd. It's like the song from Cheers. Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name. Life group is a different kind of insurance. People talk a lot about medical insurance and life insurance when you get sick, but relational insurance is far more important. I didn't need my dad's money, but I could have used some of his friends. Let me go a little bit further down. He starts talking about his faith a little bit more, and he talks about Terrence Clark, which is a tragic story of a basketball player who was at Kentucky, and he was in a car accident like a week before the NBA draft or something like that. It was pretty close before the draft, maybe a month. I don't know. But he starts talking about that and how that was on his mind. There's a Bible passage from Jesus' brother that comes to mind. Now listen, you who say today or tomorrow we will go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business and make money. Why you do not even know what will happen tomorrow? What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. So where does that leave us, the little mist? There are some things from the Bible that I've been learning over the past year. Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress. Learn to do right, seek justice, defend the oppressed, take up the cause of the fatherless, plead the case of the widow. And you shall not mistreat any widow or fatherless child. There are hundreds of verses like that. I have already told some of my friends, when I see you in heaven, there's only one thing I'm going to ask. Were you good to my son and my wife? Were you there for them? Does my son know you? I don't want Jackson to have the same childhood that I did. I want him to wonder why his dad's friends. It's so good. Always come over and shoot hoops with him. Why they always invite him to their houses. Why there's so many of them at his games. I hope that he gets sick of them. One thing I've learned from this experience is that you can't worry about things that you can't control. I can't control what will happen to me. I don't know how long I will be there for my son. It wasn't very long. All I can do is make the most of the time that I have left. That means investing in other people so they can be there for him. This is what it looks like to be a Christian and experience suffering. Like, he's an NBA guy. He could have just stuck to the X's and O's and write out a few things that he's hopeful for in the future of the NBA, or talk about some of his favorite stories about the NBA. But I just love the Tjarks took the time to write this. And you know it's coming from a place of sincerity, because he's talking about this is what faith looks like, to care for people. And how he's so wanting the people in his life, whether they're Christians or not, to experience that for his son. And I am thankful that he had a following, because his widow did get a lot of support for the funeral and all of that. There was a GoFundMe. It was $300,000. That just showed how many people cared about this guy. But I mean, more than that, this article will probably be his lasting legacy. And I think it's a legacy worth sharing. This guy, again, not a theologian, not a pastor, not a megachurch pastor, just a guy who wrote articles online about the NBA, and his closing minutes on this earth, he only had so much time. He decided that he wanted to write about what genuine faith looks like, and it looks like caring for other people. And I think he's right. Obviously, when he quotes scripture, James 1:27, religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless as this, to look after orphans and widows in their distress. The life of a Christian is a life of love for others. Yes, in worshiping God and glorifying Him, but one of the ways that we show that we worship God is through our love for other people. And so, yes, this article, it is my favorite thing that I have read all year long, and I think that it is well worth your time, to read the whole thing, not just what I kind of skipped through, but go and read the whole thing. Now, let me talk about one thing let's go from one extreme to the other. So that's something I think that is well worth your time to go and read. And now let's talk about this. Let's go away from Dean crying on camera. For some Christians, rapture anxiety can take a lifetime to heal. Like, all right, a few things. Let me be clear. Like, I do understand as someone who grew up in the like Left Behind, kind of, tidal wave on culture. Like, I remember when that last Left Behind book came out and everyone was like, oh my goodness, it's like Harry Potter, like it's like that big of like a cultural moment. Like, I understand that there are probably lots of kids that were very scared of the rapture. And like, anyone else at a Bible college, I guess, I was one of those guys, playing pranks about the rapture on, one of the poor kids in the dorm. So like, I get that. Like, there is something inherently scary about being left behind. But I just found this so funny. All right. Like last week we talked about the TikTok guy, the Tiki-Taki guy, Brandon. I'm forgetting his last name. But like the TikTok dude, pastor. So we're talking about like those kinds of people a little bit. And I saw this come up today and I was like, what in the world? And I read it. It's from April A. Joy is really like the focus of it. And she's huge on TikTok as well. And part of like, I even showed a clip actually that she was in last week of a podcast that she does with a few others. And they were interviewing Brandon. But it's just so funny to me. Like, okay, there might be like some things, but it's very clear that like CNN is trying to paint this as like, oh, this harmful theology. Like, oh, look what it does to people. It gives them this anxiety about the rapture. Like, what they're trying to do is try to weaponize like a sense of fear. Like, as if this was like something that is unhealthy and should be avoided. And it's like in some ways like some kind of like tormenting factor of a religion, and that it needs to be done with because it's archaic. Like that kind of like that. As you read this article, I just thought it was super funny. Just like this idea of rapture anxiety. Like, we're just putting anxiety about everything that is like something that we don't like. Like, obviously no one wants to be left behind. Now, whether you believe in the rapture or not, that's a different thing. But like for those that do, like, the idea of being left behind, of course, that would be like, a scary thing, especially for kids thinking about that. But just because something is unpleasant in a religion doesn't make it to where it's like this like oppressive thing, to where, oh, it's just harmful for young minds to have this kind of ideology shoved in their face. Like, hell isn't a very like fun thing to talk about or a fun thing to think about. And yes, it's scary. Doesn't mean that hell doesn't exist. Like, it's just kind of funny that like rapture anxiety, it's like the most like, are we really doing this? Like, we're just putting anxiety and like, all of like these mental health issues on top of anything that's unpleasant in a religious structure. Like, no, hard pass CNN. So there was something good with Jonathan Tjarks' article, and there's something just not that very good with this rapture anxiety. I'll have like in a couple minutes as soon as I'm done streaming, I'll edit the description. I forgot to add these articles into there, but if you want to check them out, it's kind of funny. Like this rapture anxiety one, like some of it is like, all right, I can see how someone would be a little upset about, where they're coming from with this, but no, CNN doesn't need to be written about rapture anxiety. All right, let's go over to let's head over to let's go to Fundytown. And bring it on down to Fundyville. All right, so I want to show one tweet. That's all we're gonna look at Fundytown, Fundyville. I know the song says Fundyville. but it's Fundy Town. I don't know. I'll come up with something in the new year. But let's look at one of our favorites here on the channel, I guess. It's not really one of the favorites. But we're going to look at this tweet from Dale Partridge. So he felt compelled to tweet this. The winning formula for a modern television commercial. 1, make the woman the leader. 2, make the man beta or gay. Number 3, make sure every race is included. Number 4, no wedding rings. Number 5, no kids. 6, add a dog. This is how the godless groom society. The righteous must take back media. There's a lot that could be said about this tweet. I kind of like the idea of just like letting it sit and marinate with you guys. But one, I don't know if I've ever seen a commercial with maybe even like 4 of these. But also, can we please stop? I've said this a couple times. Can we please stop with like these weird like Gen Z things? I refuse to talk about like guys as alphas or betas. I think it's so weird. And it's so weird to hear a guy who's a pastor and like wearing a suit and his thing talk about betas. Like, I'm not sure exactly what that means, which probably some of you guys who are of this kind of mindset would be like, well, that's because you are one, whatever. But like, I don't. Let's just stop all that kind of like, some things don't need to be added into like the vocab of society. And I'm kind of the mind that one can just go away. But also, like, what's wrong with having every race included? Like, I know he's probably trying to be like, oh, it feels like we have to do all these things. But like, this is not a good look. Like, of all the things you could be tweeting about, and like, this seems like frustration, and it's Fundy frustration, which I find pretty funny. Let's go over to the penalty box. All right, we've got a few additions to the penalty box this week. Skipped over it last week, so I'm going to show you one from that one. And then we've got some interesting ones this time. So let's see.
And there's a call.
All right. So the first entry into the penalty box is Joseph L., who writes, great title, but you do all the talking. 90% is your commentary. How about we listen to them and you talk less? I won't be watching your channel again. Well, you don't have to. Like, this is one thing that I always say. Like, no Christian, no person is obligated to watch any of my videos. I just put it out there. It's up to you whether you want to watch or not watch. And like your announcement of like, I won't be subscribing. It's like, well, I knew you probably wouldn't anyways, but like, I won't be watching your channel again. Okay. That's fine. You don't need to tell me in a comment, but yeah. And then like, it's my channel. Like, what do you want this to be? Like, do you want it to just be John MacArthur and John Piper's interview? That's a different video, bro. like you can go and watch that video. Like, this video is me talking about this thing. So if you don't want that, there's a different video that you should have probably clicked on when you did the search. Like, it has my face on it. Like, that means I'm going to be talking about this. But I found it funny. All right, let's look at entry number 2.
The following play is under review for a major or match penalty.
All right, and this one is a little bit frustrating. Like, I get it. I got a lot of, let me make this like a little bit bigger so we can read it. Let's go right there. All right. So, the Doug Wilson stuff, I always get in trouble with those guys. Same for the MacArthur fanboys. They don't like me, and that's fine. Whatever. But I did a video where I clipped out from a chill stream about, like that. Someone asked me, I think it was Wendy, asked me like, what do we do with Doug Wilson? Now, if he is a heretic, what do we do with him? And so I clipped out my response to that. And it's just so frustrating that some people are like, well, we need context for that. Well, then go watch the stream, like, or go watch any of the videos. And so I posted that comment of like, hey, go and check out my other stuff if you want the context for that. Because a lot of people were like, how is he a heretic? It's like, well, I have other videos. Like, just go watch the other videos where I specifically talk about that. Like, again, it is not my fault that you don't know how to use YouTube. Okay. Like, you could click on the other video that doesn't have my face on it, or you can go and find, like, there's a lot of, like, you can put Dean Lentini, Doug Wilson, and probably, I think every single one of them will probably show up. Well, but then he says, so this is Spartacus. I am Spartacus. No, I'm Spartacus. So this is the 317th Spartacus. And he says, this seems like exactly the kind of hate clickbait content you accuse Dale Partridge of. So this is someone who isn't just like, like he's seen some of the videos. People will respond negatively to such a video. Actually, no, I don't. Because this was part of a chill stream. And honestly, like, I kind of expect people to like look into Doug Wilson's theology. And if they're Christians, I expect people to be like, wait, this isn't justification by faith alone, is it? And be like, oh, and like be shocked, that that's what's happened with that guy. But also like, like maybe learn. That's kind of what I expect. I don't expect, outrage. I expect people to be like, oh, junk. I really like this guy, like that kind of thing. But people will respond negatively to such a video, especially a short clip that calls Wilson a heretic. Well, there's more context to that. And he knows that. Describing someone as a heretic requires more context than just a 2-minute video. You posted the video. It is your responsibility to ensure there is context. No, it's not. That's what a short is. That's what a clip out is. It is not my fault that you don't know how to search and to see the other video. Now, granted, he's watched some of the Dale Partridge stuff, so I'm assuming that he's already seen the other video. So I don't think that was genuine. So Spartacus, I don't know which one you are, Spartacus, if you're the real Spartacus or not, but you ended up in the penalty box. Now this one is interesting. All right, we'll end with this one.
2 minutes for slashing and 2 minutes for roughing.
All right, so this one is odd. And I want to talk to this for a minute and like actually be serious, because if you look at this, you're like, Dean, why are you bringing up one of your own comments? Well, if you notice there, it says Dean Lentini parody. And I don't think the person who liked it knew that it was a parody thing. But I got a few comments this weekend from this account, and I was like, what is going on? And apparently, this Dean Lentini parody, someone has made, like, I get videos made about me every so often, get referenced and stuff. Occasionally I have people who clip out things and put it into their video, like whatever. I'm on the internet, fair game. All right. For some of it. But this kind of stuff is just weird. And I want to be clear. Like, you could read that. Like, I don't know how to take it is really what I'm getting at. If you think it's funny, I don't know, because this could have been a well-intentioned joke. I could see myself doing this like a decade ago and thinking like, ha, 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 ha. Different times a decade ago, both for myself and actually like the culture, things were a little bit different a decade ago. So I could see, someone doing this out of like, trying to be lighthearted, and maybe they had a plan of, posting some things and thinking it would be funny. The description here makes me go like, I don't think this was a well-intentioned joke, but I want to be clear. If like you started this thing and you're a watcher of the channel and you were like, I was just trying to be funny. I wasn't trying to be mean. I wasn't going to like go at you or whatever. I want to be clear. Like, you're still welcome on this channel. I didn't get the joke. Now, if you if you try to do it as like a mean thing, it's creepy. It's creepy. And that's why the joke, if it was well intentioned, which again I doubt, but if it was, like, it didn't land because it's a creepy thing in this day and age to impersonate someone. Like, we do a lot of things online. And so, like, even some of you guys who run like some of you guys might run some of those accounts that are on Twitter where it's like fake John Piper. I think it's weird. I think it's weird to do that. Like, because we do a lot of things online. I think it's really weird to like impersonate people. So, if it was well intentioned, okay. But that description makes me think that it wasn't. So you ended up in the penalty box. All right, let's hit up the chat one more time, and then we'll head out. I do have a couple announcements that I should probably talk about too once we're going through a little bit. Let's see. Aspects of Ashley's here. Lael's creation is here. Burton's here with his beard. Burton beard. That's so fun to say, dude. Like, you got to figure out Burton's beard review. Like, is there another way to say reviews that's a B? Like, you should go full in with the alliteration because it's so fun to say. Burton's beard reviews. Let's see. Yeah, a lot of like, wait, what? With that tweet. Bro's getting triggered over a commercial. Well, I mean, some commercials like that, like I can understand getting triggered over some of them. But this hypothetical commercial in his head, I don't know. You know what's wrong with it, Dean? Yep. After watching your video on Dale, I had to review some of his tweets, and boy, he really doesn't think before tweeting. I think Lael, he does, and that's a problem. Like, that's the problem. I think that he probably spends a large amount of his week planning out tweets. Now, some of that is just Googling quotes and changing a few words, adding on a sentence here and there to make it seem like it's his own. That's a thing. Like, that wasn't a past thing. I showed, like, you can go onto my Twitter. I interacted with one of his, like, last week where it was very clear that he plagiarized. So, but, it's a Twitter thing, so it doesn't matter, right? I think it does matter. But I think that he spends a lot of time tweeting, which is why it's problematic. I'm a little confused. This is a commentary channel, right? Like, which one? Are you talking about the parody? The parody account? I have no idea what that was about. David says, so strange. Reformed Coops is here. Sup, Dean? Friends? Nothing much. We're coming to the end of the stream. But I'll never understand why people spend so much time watching videos they don't like and then commenting. I am the same way, David. I'm like the way I watch things is if I don't like someone, I'm just not going to watch their videos. Like in general. And it's pretty easy for me to tell whether I'm going to like someone or not. But yeah, I just don't watch the videos. And then if it's someone that I do like and I disagree with something they said, I keep it to myself. Now, I'm not saying that everyone else has to. It's just like that's how I deal with things that I disagree with. Now, if I think that someone, like, because most people don't like being corrected. And I'm the same way. I don't enjoy it. I'll take it if I think that it's like valid criticism. But, it's not something that I enjoy. And most people don't enjoy it. So, like, even, like, there have been a couple times where I'm like, all right, I think I have a good rapport with this person. I think I could push back a little bit. But even then I'm like, saying, hey, this is just my opinion, like that kind of thing. I don't get the people who are like, you're the worst. And this opinion is the worst. And this channel is the worst. And I'll be back next video. like why? Why would you do that? I don't understand the hate watch thing. Hope everyone is well. It's Josh Bice's secret account. Maybe. Josh, is that you? I don't think he has the time for that. Yeah, I just didn't know how to take it. Like I'm assuming that it was not a well-intentioned joke, but I just want to put it out there if there's someone who's like I'm people are accusing me and I'm not, this is not what I intended. I get that. I get it. All right, let's see. The fake Dean account's owner is just jealous of your beard, bro. Might be. Burton's beard. I'm going to go to a thesaurus right after this. I'm going to look up reviews and I'm going to find something else because it's just so fun to go to it's a fun sound. Tried looking up the parody account and I can't find it. I agree. I looked it up trying to find it and it's gone. So that's one of the things that makes me go maybe it was a well-intentioned joke because maybe they took it down after they realized that they couldn't comment on anything. Burton's Better Beard Bureau. Oh, hey, that's kind of fun. Wait a minute. Philip says, made it on a work day. I agree. People put so much effort into hating. Oh, man. I got excited. I was like, you made the account? No. I made it on a work day, so I didn't have much time. Oh, that would have been really funny. But hey, you made it. You made it to the stream on a work day. He's not the one behind the parody account. But someday we're going to find it together. Hey, while I got you guys, two things. If you're here, hit the like button. I never say it enough. And I always forget to say it, and it's just I got an animation, but it's too late for the animation. But there's not going to be Underdog Theology next Monday. I am planning on January 2nd to have another episode and get back. It's just going to carry on. I'm taking a week off. All right. Now there probably will be other streams, and there definitely will be. I haven't made the thumbnail yet. I need to make the thumbnail. But Friday, Christmas with the Lentinis. We got her. Oh, we got her. I don't know how. This is probably my biggest get as a guest. Biggest get. All right. Heather has decided to come back on the show. To come back on the channel. A lot of you guys asked in one of the chill streams that I did last week, and you guys were like, we want Heather back on the channel. And I know it's because you secretly want Heather to take over my channel, but I'll entertain it anyways. So we're gonna stream on Friday night and just hang out. We're gonna talk about Christmas. I don't know. I might take all the equipment upstairs. Maybe we do it in front of the Christmas tree. Maybe we take the whole Christmas tree down and we replace this plant with a Christmas tree. It's not gonna happen. But if you're not busy on Friday. Maybe you're just at home. Maybe you're just hanging out and you're like, you got nothing else going on. You've already seen Black Adam 4 times. Might as well, hang out with me and Heather. We're going to have some fun. I'm going to try to come up with some games. And we're just going to have a good holiday time. I'm sorry. Well, I meant Christmas. Don't cancel me. All right. So that's what we're going to be doing later on in the week. It should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. There probably will be some more streams this week. I'm not sure though. Here's the thing. I'm not going to stream this week just to stream. If there's something that I think is important to talk about, then I'll have another stream. If not, I will see you on Friday. But things are coming. I shared some things on the chill stream from, was it Saturday? I think it was Saturday. Stickers, mugs, shirts, all these things are coming. New things are coming. New shows. That's right. I said shows are coming in the new year. 2023, the year of the Underdog. I'll see you on Friday.